I'm Caroline Mitchell, ex-police detective and crime thriller author, and today I'm bringing you the case of Diana Lovejoy, a tale of seduction, manipulation, and dare I say it, a classic case of wonky thinking before all of Diana's chickens come home to roost. All will be explained, so stay tuned as we break down this true crime case.
I'm Diana Lovejoy, and quick meals are my specialty. I know that you don't have all day. We've got mouths to feed. Welcome to my kitchen, where I really like to cook, but I'm often short on time, so speed is the hook.
Diana Lovejoy looked like a Stepford Wives type character here, portraying a wholesome family life. She appeared to have it all, living in the affluent city of Carlsbad, which is north of the city of San Diego in Southern California. It has a 128-acre Legoland theme park with fishing lagoons, nature trails and pristine beaches, so it's hardly any wonder that it's one of the top 20 richest cities in the US. But when it came to Diana Lovejoy, behind the smiles and online images, there was something darker at play. So Diana was born in 1975. She graduated with a VA in psychology, literature and French. She was a senior technical writer, but her real love was fitness and healthy eating. And in 2008 she became a personal trainer and wrote for the Women's Triathlon organization too. Diana was a busy lady who worked for Nokia and quite ambitious it seemed, but she found the time to meet Greg Volvo through a dating site in 2005, and they were living in San Diego at the time. They had things in common as he was also into fitness and worked in the tech industry as a software engineer. They met a handsome couple and married in 2007 after just 2 years together. So they moved to Carlsbad together, and during that time they tried to start a family. But this did not come easily for Diana, who believed that she suffered from fibromyalgia, a condition that can affect your fertility. So after 8 traumatic miscarriages and a difficult high-risk pregnancy, their first baby was born. But it seems the stress of everything they went through had taken its toll, and when Greg lost his job, their marriage really began to feel the strain. She was also suffering from chronic fatigue and believed that her son had some kind of illness, despite everyone telling her that he didn't. So life was taking its toll on Diana. The couple went through a round of marriage counselling, but it obviously didn't work as they separated in 2014. And that was just after 7 years of marriage, so the 7-year itch had kicked in by then. By 2016, Greg and Diana were sharing custody of their son, although their divorce wasn't finalised at the time. Now, stress can do funny things, and not just to your health, but to your mental health too. It's like water dripping into a jug. Every stress point drips a little bit more water in. So using the jug metaphor, it's not any one thing that causes everything to spill over, but the accumulation of them. And stress is the same way. And that's when people have their own inner narrative and it goes round and round in their head, planning and justifying and thinking. And Diana was thinking. If only someone could help her find a way out of the perceived hole that she dug herself into. Because all love had been lost for Greg. Diana didn't want to share custody, and she certainly didn't want to keep her husband around anymore. Greg wasn't happy about the amount of medication that Diana was giving to their son. The divorce was bitter and contentious, and she wanted her son to herself. So she hatched a little plan. It began with the allegations. Diana took out a restraining order against her husband, making claims of sexual assault not just to her, but her and their son. She also claimed her husband was a drug user and took substances around her child, and he knew nothing of this until he went home one day, was met by the police and was told to pack a bag and get out. And I've seen this many times in the police with people making all sorts of claims to gain full custody of a child. And if you were a victim of domestic abuse, well, any kind of abuse like this, it's important to get that counterclaim in quickly so police can investigate it with a balanced approach, which is exactly what Greg did. He made a counter allegation saying that Diana was mentally unstable and that she physically and emotionally abused him. So during the investigations, restrictions were placed on Greg when it came to seeing his son, and his son was seen by social care and interviewed again and again, being reassessed. But the restrictions were later lifted as no wrongdoing was found, and as you can imagine, Diana wasn't too happy about that and moved on to the next stage of her plan. So she joined a gun club and learned how to shoot. And okay, my internal alarm bells are ringing all over the place now. And it later came out at court that at one point Diana told her aunt how frightened she was of her husband and that she suspected that he was abusing their son. She also continued to claim that he was sick, but she refused to have him seen by any of the specialists at children's hospitals. So one day Diana met this aunt for dinner and asked if she knew of anyone who could either scare or kill her husband. And Diana's aunt described the whole incident as being completely shocked and taken aback. She told her that it was a remarkably dumb idea and that she'd never get away with it. Fast forward a year after this conversation and things have not improved between Greg and Diana, but that's okay because Diana has a new squeeze. His name was Weldon McDavid, a former Marine sniper, and Diana wasted no time in telling Weldon what a monster her ex-husband was, but of course Weldon was married at the time. But that didn't stop Diana, and she told Weldon that she was terrified and learning how to shoot so she could defend herself from the man who was hell-bent on hurting her and her son. And Weldon believed her hook, line and sinker. Weldon was a protective person after spending 12 years in the Marines. He had no reason not to believe Diana. Weldon's wife, Leah, wasn't quite so sure, and she was not happy about the amount of texts going back and forward between them. But Weldon empathized with Diana because he had a son too. So the case took another dark turn when Greg received a very odd call, and it ended like this.
Hello, this is 911.
Yeah. My friend has just been shot. There's a guy lying down like a sniper.
A sniper? Did you see him at all?
Briefly, we saw the gun, and he shot at us like 6 or 7 times. He's bleeding pretty bad.
On September the 1st, 2016, Greg was called by Weldon, who claimed to be a private eye. He stated that he had documents which proved Greg had been abusing his son. Greg denied this, of course, and the caller said he'd leave the documents near Greg's home down a dirt path taped to a pole. Greg called the police to ask for advice, but they weren't very helpful, it said. And I know that looks bad, but when you first dial the emergency number, you are put through to a call taker or a dispatcher first. And they receive a crazy amount of weird calls, one after the other, all day long. And they have to deal with these calls quickly because their next life and death emergency could be waiting on the line. I spent 3 days with dispatchers when I was training for my job in the police, and honestly, it is a really tough job, and you wouldn't believe the amount of weird calls that they receive. So Greg didn't get any satisfaction because at that point he was told it was a civil matter. Now, what would you have done at this point? Because it sure smells of a setup to me. Greg decided to respond, and he enlisted the help of his friend Jason, who lived in the same building and who was also his boss. So at around 11 p.m. they headed down this dark, creepy trail, bringing a child's baseball bat and a strong torchlight. They found the pole all right, but there was nothing taped to it, and feeling like they've just been sent on a wild goose chase, they decided to check a little bit further before returning home. So they shone the flashlight and froze as they were met with the glint of the barrel of a gun. The shooter opened fire, and Greg and Jason ran for their lives as bullets sprayed the air. Now, Greg had not expected this at all. As much as he complained about Diana, he said he'd never thought she would go as far as murder, although it wouldn't have killed Diana's aunt to give him the heads up. They made it back to the car, but Greg had been shot and he passed out. Jason called the police, who arrived onto the scene, and by then the reported sniper had legged it, but they did find something else that they didn't see coming. Carlsbad fingerprint and evidence specialist Christine Duran said, "We didn't know what to think, honestly, because this story sounded crazy. We thought there's something missing here." Well, they found up some material with the Angry Birds graphic on it, and when they lifted it, they would have recoiled, as before them was a very big human poo. Now, I'm sorry if you're eating, but I'm going to carry on because this is quite interesting. In my 9 years in the police, poo featured quite a lot. I've been to burglaries where a suspect pooed on the sofa, and that was their calling card. And I've been to a church break-in where some kids left a deposit in the holy water font. And I was oh so grateful that I didn't need to collect it for DNA testing. And I'm sorry if you're eating, but DNA doesn't come from the, well, let's call it the deposit itself. It's actually the cells around it. So what was the offending matter doing in this case of Greg's? Well, I've recently covered this in a previous video featuring the Lisa Holm case. When people experience a major event, it can trigger a sudden response in our bodies, which can, for some people, leave them with a sudden urge to empty their bowels. And it's more common than you think, although this is the first time I've ever seen the Angry Birds draped over one. Anyway, back to the case. Diana was questioned by police, and of course she denied all involvement, but in most cases like these where there's beef between both parties, family is usually involved. So police continued with their investigation, and that's when Diana decided to throw Weldon under the bus. She placed the blame on Weldon, despite admitting that she'd given him a burner phone and even dropped him off to the scene of the crime that night. And then she said Weldon was only meant to scare Greg, nothing more. Well, after executing a search warrant at Weldon McDavid's property, police raided his home and found everything they needed there. Guns, a suppressor, and spent shells. Investigators also found the gun used in Greg's shooting. I mean, that was sloppy, wasn't it? And then they later found security footage of the person who purchased the burner phone that made the anonymous call to Greg, none other than, you've guessed it, Diana Lovejoy. During questioning, Diana said that she bought the burner phone that was used to call her ex the night of the incident. She also said that she and Weldon were more than just shooting buddies, they were having an affair, and he'd offered to help her regain full custody of her son. Weldon was arrested and interviewed, and the penny finally dropped. Diana wasn't a victim of abuse, she was using him to get rid of Greg. And he half-heartedly denied it in interview at first, but it was the presence of the poo that really tied him to the scene. And he admitted to being there that night, if only to put the frighteners on Greg.
Along, and I did have to we can set up. By who? In fact, I know it. Who's setting you up?
Luckily for Weldon, Greg survived his injuries. The couple were charged with attempted murder and conspiracy to commit murder, and a year after the incident in October 2017, they went to trial. Weldon, who was an ex-Marine, kept his defense of saying that he was an expert shot, and if he wanted to kill Greg, he could have done it instantly. But Greg, who'd received a shot to the torso, almost died. Jason and Greg gave damning evidence, saying that night Jason shouted that there was a gun and the pair of them headed for the cover of their car. Diana's aunt gave evidence against her too, and that did not help her case. And it also came to light that a district attorney happened to be in earshot at the time and reported the conversation to the police. And when Diana was then approached by police, she denied everything. So it must have come as a surprise when her auntie gave evidence against her in court. But that wasn't all that would come out in court. Diana and Weldon pleaded not guilty and denied that they had conspired to murder Greg. Weldon said that with his background, if he'd really intended to gun down Greg, he wouldn't have missed the kill shot. I could hit that person centre mass 100 yards away without any problem, he said. But it came out in court that money had a role to play for Diana with regards to this case. She was not happy about the financial side of things, and as part of the custody agreement, she had to pay Greg child support and a lump sum of $120,000. So it was cheaper for her to pay Weldon $2,000 to get rid of Greg, which is what she did. Of course, they hadn't meant to physically harm him with the bullets and all. After a day and a half, a jury returned, and Diana looked utterly shocked as a guilty verdict was returned. And that's the power of wonky thinking, because I'm betting that she had convinced herself that not only was she totally in the right, but that everything was going to be okay. And she put on quite the performance, appearing to faint with her eyes open.
In and for the County of San Diego, the people of the state of California. Plaintiff versus Weldon K. McDavid, defendant. Case number SCN. We, the jury, in the above entitled cause, find the defendant, Weldon K. McDavid, guilty of the crime of conspiracy to commit murder.
All right, we're going to need to take a break. Are you done?
She was taken for treatment before the rest of the guilty verdict was returned. In the end, Diana was sentenced to 26 years to life in prison. Weldon was sentenced to 50 years to life. They're quite strong sentences, but very fitting for what was an ambush on an innocent man. And his friend could have been shot too. Diana will be eligible for parole when she's 70, and Weldon will when he's 100. What do you think? Had Weldon not gone ahead with it, I'm sure Diana would have continued regardless, whether shooting Greg herself or coaxing someone else to go through with it. I'm definitely not buying the whole scaring for custody defense. I mean, how would that stop someone from wanting custody anyway? Would they think, oh yeah, Diana tried to shoot me, she's a great mom, I'll let her keep our son. I think Diana spent a lot of time in her own head. She convinced herself that she was the victim and Greg was like this annoying fly that she just needed to swat away. She didn't want to pay out what she would have believed to be her own hard cash, and she did not expect Weldon to miss. And maybe the fact that this was a cold-blooded killing had an effect on him. Yes, he was a Marine with tons of experience of using guns, but an illegal kill is different. And it's obvious by his sudden bodily function at the scene that adrenaline really had kicked in. And perhaps deep down he knew what he was doing was wrong. And with so much going on in his body and in his head, he accidentally missed the shot. Either way, he's had a long time to regret ever setting eyes on the dangerous and devious Diana Lovejoy. So what's the latest on Weldon and Diana? Weldon is serving a sentence of 50 years to life in California Institution for Men in Chino. He received a longer sentence because he was the one who pulled the trigger. Weldon was interviewed by NBC News, and when asked if there was one thing that he could change about the past, he said he'd choose not to be unfaithful to his wife with Diana because that was what hurt his wife the most.
If there was only one thing I could take away, I would take that away because I hurt my wife.
Diana is incarcerated at the Central California Women's Facility, serving a sentence of 26 years to life in prison, and her petition for resentencing was denied in May 2024, so she will be eligible for parole in 2036. Greg survived the shooting with a bullet wound under his left armpit. So what do you think? And if you'd like to see more human true crime breakdowns, then subscribe to be notified. And in the meantime, check out this video of Lisa Holm if you haven't already, where I dig a little deeper into what actually happens internally to people who go on to kill. And remember, while domestic incidents are all too common, they don't usually end like this, so don't lose any sleep over it. I hope this was useful to you, and until next time, take care. Bye bye for now.